So 10 years of the Teaching with Digital Technology Awards, and I'm going to share some brief remarks, but these are awards, that the students have nominated, selected. So the students not only do the nominations, but they actually are the people that tell us who the winners are going to be each year. And so what we are doing this year is we're going to have some student comments come up to discuss some of the work that the awardees have done. So I'll give a brief summary of each, and then we'll have the students also come up and talk about the work and the impact. So I'll start with David Otter. David's the Daniel and Gail Rubenfeld Professor of Economics, and I'm just going to do a brief summary of the award. Your kindness and judgment-free guidance has helped your students gain confidence to engage in learning. Ector Beltran, class of 1957, Career Development Associate Professor of Anthropology. Your highly collaborative course uses many technologies in ways that are very intentionally designed and appreciated by your students. Christian Cardozo, lecturer for Edgerton Center and the Experimental Studies Group. Your students describe you as incredibly kind and thoughtful in your use of virtual reality and vectors in 3D space to support their learning. Barbara Huey, senior lecturer in mechanical engineering. Your extremely organized course and wiki alleviate stress and help your students know exactly what they need to do. Wakana Meakawa, lecturer in global languages. Your students express gratitude for the organized resources in addition to the sense of community that you create that makes them feel included. Busima Tufik, assistant professor of work and organization studies. Your purposeful uses of various tools like iDecision games and more make your students feel very engaged in the class, especially as they use real data to reinforce the concepts they are learning. And finally, John Thomas, Director of Engineering Systems Laboratory Safety and Cybersecurity Group. Your students noticed and benefited from how you leverage Zoom tools for active learning and discussion, and commended your effort to constantly gather their feedback. I think one of the interesting things you hear from all of these are many of the comments that we were talking about in the panel session you're hearing in the awardees as well. And so now I'm going to call up the students to mention some of the things that they were most impressed with on some of the awardees. So I'm going to start with Mariel Garcia Montez.
It is my honor to be here to celebrate Ector Beltran as an educator who effectively and intentionally designs education, especially in the humanities, bringing digital media into the humanities. I speak as a TA for two of his classes, Technology and Culture and Cultures of Computing, but also on behalf of my dear colleague Amber Reyes, who was also a student in Hacking from the South. And we were just discussing why we were both so excited to nominate Ector for this award. And a lot of it comes down to his slideshows, which I think a lot of people treat as a sort of something putting together in the last 5 minutes before session. And in his case, we just saw this, not just this beautiful design, but this intentional decision to include student voices and elevate them, to put them in conversation with the theorists that Ector discusses in class. We saw him open code terminals to do critical code reviews, have students play independent games in class, indie games, video games. We saw him do transmedia speculative design in one of the sessions. And a lot of people would think, oh, this is fun, or, this is maybe not fun, but this is just like cute. But what we're trying to say here is that this really made an impact in student learning, and I want to highlight very quickly two aspects. One was that I was a TA in 2021 when it was full remote instruction. And a lot of freshmen, starting their MIT journeys, still from their childhood bedrooms, joined Ector's class. And so his work really fostered a sense of belonging and coming together to learn, bringing people together even though we were all very distant. And especially for one of our beloved students who no longer is here, who joined our classes despite doing, late-stage cancer treatments, he had a reprieve from the life he was facing at home in Ector's class, thanks to the community that he fostered. And also, I want to say that educating in the age of AI, we'll ask ourselves, what does it mean to educate in a way that an AI note-taker cannot summarize a class that can then be emailed to someone else who can then show up with a generative AI essay to pass the class without ever having been there. And I really do think that, or we really do think, Amber and I, that we have learned from Ector how to design education that is not, that resists that, that cannot be faked with ChatGPT, that cannot be summarized by an AI note-taker because of the intentional design behind it. And this is why we celebrate Ector, and MIT is very lucky to have you.
And thank you, Marielle, for the inspiring words. Next, Austin Baker.
All right, hello everybody. My name's Austin. I'm a second-year master's student in the Systems Design and Management program. And last fall, I had the pleasure of taking system safety with Dr. John Thomas. And it's quite an experience if you're familiar with his style. Within the first 2 minutes, you kind of get a sense of his passion and enthusiasm for the topic. And within the first 5 minutes, you can understand how loud he gets. This is the exact room that we actually had the lecture in, and his voice just booms and echoes throughout. And then by the 10-minute mark, you understand just how much of an expert he is in the field of system safety. And so today, I know we're recognizing a kind of a particular aspect of that experience, the use of digital technology in our learning experience. And so to give some context, as part of the course, we're learning something called System Theoretic Process Analysis, or STPA. And this is a method by which we can uncover hazards or unsafe actions in a complex system, hopefully before they occur. And this is not a trivial task. It kind of requires a lot of systems thinking. And this is a method that was actually born here at MIT under Dr. Levison and Dr. Thomas. And so we were in this room in a lecture going through the identification of unsafe control actions for the 1999 Mars Polar Lander crash, if you happen to know anything about that. And doing it by yourself is tricky, but doing it with some classmates helps you work through all the different perspectives, all the different component interactions that may have occurred and contributed to that crash. And so the piece of digital technology that was mentioned earlier was Zoom's whiteboard tools. And so he would put us into small groups. We would talk with each other together over this digital kind of whiteboard. And when he brought us back together up on the big screen, we would see everybody's work together. And he would kind of zoom and pan around. And we would kind of discuss, and he would give feedback in real time on what we had put on the whiteboard on our thought processes to get to those answers. And we were able to give feedback to each other. And it was extremely effective for me and all of my classmates in kind of getting the process down and understanding, oh, maybe this team had a different way of approaching the question about what the unsafe control actions were. And it was so effective that I immediately started to integrate this whiteboard in the meetings that I was running elsewhere on campus. And so I just want to say thanks to John. I know he's not here today, but it is going to be one of the most effective learning experiences I will have had in my time here at MIT. So thanks, John.
And thank you, Austin. Next, we have Anna Mohanty. Mohanty? Nope, Anna's not here. I think that's what I'm seeing. Okay, sorry about. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you very much.
Hey, so I'm going to be speaking on behalf of Christian Cardozo today, and just the amazing work that he's done for the whole of the ESG community, but especially in his first-year math courses. So by being so creative with the technology that he has used in the classroom, whether it was laser pointers to make vector fields with smoke machines, he did that in office hours and set off the fire alarm, or using virtual reality helmets to show determinants, or using Claude to write a country song about Green's theorem. No one had the heart to tell him how bad it was, but he put in the effort. So Christian made this content of the course incredibly accessible, and he truly puts in an inspiring effort into communicating concepts in a tangible way in a largely theoretical class of multivariable calculus. And I also want to highlight how he puts in double that effort into making sure that every student has felt welcome and encouraged in his classroom. He let me and other students stay late in office hours to ensure that we each got individual attention. He let me go down random linear algebra rabbit holes when my interest was piqued, and even met with me after class to talk about handling the transition to MIT itself, just as an undergrad, as a person. And as a former MIT student himself, he definitely keeps both the challenging and joyous moments of undergrad at the forefront of his mind, making him an incredibly empathetic educator. So I'm so glad that he's been honored with this award for so many reasons. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. And finally, Abby Dixon.
It takes a special type of person to teach. It takes an even more special type of person to integrate the rapidly developing technologies of the modern world into their teaching. It takes a third, very special type of person to help undergraduate students design and perform experiments, process large amounts of data, and interpret their results in the context of real-world applications. Somehow, miraculously, Dr. Barbara Huey is all three. In 2671, Measurement and Instrumentation for Mechanical Engineering Undergraduates, Dr. Huey leads the teaching staff in making resources, including assignment descriptions and helpful tips, example research posters and papers, and literature databases easily accessible to students via the 2671 wiki page. This page, while simple and straightforward in nature, is made exceptional by its thoughtful organization and navigation, making crucial resources easy to find at the click of a button. Through the management of an extensive instrument library, Dr. Huey and the 2671 teaching staff enable the collection of precise, insightful measurements of sound, light, force, motion, material properties, and even physiological phenomena like muscle activation. These provide students with great flexibility in customizing their projects across a wide variety of focus areas. To take it a step further, the thoughtful guidance provided to students on how to process their measurement data using Vernier's Logger Pro collection and analysis software, Excel, and MATLAB makes extracting meaningful data from measurements very accessible to students with varying levels of experience with data processing. Dr. Huey deserves to be recognized as a leader among faculty here at MIT that embrace and leverage digital technologies for the purpose of improving educational experiences and discovery among their students. On behalf of 2671 students, Course 2, and the wider MIT community, congratulations on your receipt of the 2026 Teaching with Digital Technology Award.
Thank you, Abby. And I think the last four speakers are an example of why we have such great students around here. One last round of applause for everybody.